All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to the Wednesday night Bible study. We're missing a lot of people, so maybe we have more people watching online tonight. But I know some people are away. Kathy's father just passed away last night, so we don't see Kathy here today. Usually sitting over here. So if anybody else wanders in here tonight, we're in Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13.
That's why we came.
Revelation, nobody's superstitious here, right?
This is a rough chapter.
Nobody's
It's fear-based.
superstitious.
We're not fear-based.
You can't find room 13, you can't find floor 13 in buildings. I mean, would you want to be in a hospital room 1313?
Sure.
A lot of people wouldn't. So usually you can't, in a high-rise building, you don't find floor 13. But anyway, reason I'm saying all this is we're getting around at the end of the chapter to 666. I'm watching a show on Masterpiece on Sunday night. One thing about PBS and Masterpiece is they only have like commercials right at the hour change. They don't have commercials during the program. Otherwise you watch a show or a movie, and it takes like 3 hours to do a 2-hour movie. You know, I guess that's why I guess some people just TiVo. Is that the word TiVo? Where you record something and you buzz through it all the commercials when you watch it. Okay. But anyway, in this one show I was watching, it has to do with a detective situation. It looks like it's in maybe the Netherlands, and it was involving a cult and demons and whatever else. But there was 666 was one, and I've heard a couple in the last week or two quotes from the Bible. It's interesting how sometimes these quotes will show up in movies and things. So you got awareness of people. I forget which quote I'm thinking about right now, but it was like, well, okay, somebody knew that quote. But the situation about the demons and the occult was very much connected to some of the things we've been talking about in Revelation, including in the last verse tonight with the number 666. So let's open with prayer. Heavenly Father, we give thanks for the opportunity to gather, even though we're fewer in number tonight. We thank you for these that are here. For others who cannot be here because they're either traveling or away or dealing with the sickness or loved ones who are passed, our thoughts and prayers are with them tonight. Guide and direct our study, and we'll be careful to give you the thanks and the praise in Jesus' name. So while you're turning to Revelation 13, it was summer came back this week. It was quite warm today. And after we finally got through this rainy period, although I understand it may rain again this weekend, like every weekend it rains. So the tag sale is on, rain or shine, and the latest we heard is they were gonna move it indoors.
Rain or shine.
Rain or shine, it's going to be indoors. So we'll see what the weather is on Friday evening, Saturday morning, but rain or shine, look like do it in here, so it'll be kind of like when we have our Christmas bazaar and whatever else. So if you're able to help out with that, Paula is in charge. So that's Saturday morning. They usually set up 7:30. These people that are the tag sale people show up and they start unpacking their things, and then we close up about 2 o'clock. You're smiling back there, Wendy.
Because your tax sale starts at 9, and they're at 7.
Okay.
Those people are.
Well, I don't need a thing, but I usually find like one item. And I was using this week a saw I bought from a lady 2 years ago that was here. It was her father's saw, and they don't make these kind of tools anymore. And I was very happy to get this hand saw because sometimes you don't feel like if you're just going to saw a board or two or something else to get out power equipment and whatever. So it's just easier, the saw. So usually I find something that just kind of finds me. You know, you walk through and it kind of like jumps off at you. And pennies on a dollar, it's almost to be the sin of omission, you know. My definition of the sin of omission. Okay, we're in chapter 13. And if you noticed, as we've gone through here, like in chapter 11, chapter 10, it was the angel in the little scroll. Chapter 11, it was the two witnesses. Last week it was the woman and the dragon. And tonight we're talking about the two beasts. One that came out of the sea and one is seen coming from the land. The two beasts. And we'll spend probably a little bit more disproportionate time talking about the first one, the one that came out of the sea, but we're in Revelation 13. And we're going to go through the first, looks like 10 verses. So I'll start here, and each person read like 2 verses and say the verses you're reading. Revelation 13, verse 1 and 2. And I saw, John speaking, a beast out of the sea. He had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on his horns. And on each head was a blasphemous name. Verse 2, the beast I saw resembled a leopard, had feet like a bear, and a mouth like a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power, his throne, and great authority. So Wendy, verse 3 and 4.
I saw that one of the heads of the beast seemed wounded beyond recovery, but the fatal wound was healed. All the world marveled at this miracle and followed the beast in awe. 4. They worshiped the dragon for giving the beast such power. They worshiped the beast. Is there anyone as great as the beast, they explained, who's able to fight against him?
5. And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven.
7. It was allowed to fight against God's people and to defeat them, and it was given authority over every tribe, nation, language, and race. 8. All people living on earth will worship it, except those whose names were written before the creation of the world in the book of the living, which belongs to the Lamb that was killed.
9. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. 10. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
13.
Okay, we're going to pause there, okay, because now we're into the second beast. So we're going to focus here first on the first beast that John saw coming out of the sea. And actually going back to the very beginning of the chapter, it says, and the dragon stood on the shore of the sea. The dragon. What we're talking about tonight are the beasts. 2 beasts. Different from the dragon. And the dragon was who? Identified as who? Satan. The devil. Okay? Jesus warned against false Christs and false prophets. Plural. False Christs and false prophets. Who we're talking about tonight is the false Christ and the false prophet. And so we're in the last part of the book here, last part of the tribulation, the last half of the tribulation even. So we're nearing the end of before the Lord actually physically returns. And we're leading up to all the things that are going to happen right before that. So we're introduced here to this beast that's seen coming out of the sea. And while this is different from the dragon, there is some similarities. If you turn back to chapter 12, verse 3, another sign was in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns on his heads. So we're going to see some similarities between the dragon and the beast. 7 heads and 10 horns. Except here, it's interesting that the 10 horns are listed first, then the 7 heads. So there's some similarity between this beast and the dragon. Yes.
I have 2 versions, and the New King James Version puts the heads before the horns in chapter 13. So.
Which version is that?
New King James.
New King James?
Yeah.
What's the other one say?
The other one, like you say, puts the horns first and then the heads.
Who else has any other translations?
I have the heads first, then the horns.
You have the heads first and then the horns. What translation is that?
The New Living Translation.
New Living? Okay. Now, people can speculate on the heads and the horns and the crowns and significance of them. One thing I notice is different. You got the 7 heads and the 10 horns, whatever order you put them in. But in 13, it talks about the 10 crowns, where in chapter 12, it's 7 crowns. And the 7 crowns in chapter 12 are on the heads, where the 10 crowns are on the horns. And I'm not smart enough or knowledgeable enough to tell you tonight the heads, the horns, the crowns, and significance. But I'm willing to listen to any opinions or thoughts you might have. Yes.
I don't know that I have the bottom line in it, but I know they talk about like the revived Roman Empire and various numbers of, like even now there's the EU and there's various numbers of countries, but heads and horns are kind of.
It was a lot easier back when there was like 10 countries. The EU is a lot bigger than that now. So there was one time in the 60s and 70s, people were pretty much convinced that was the new Roman Empire, was this confederation of these European states. And I have to tell you, at one time I thought that there would maybe made some sense for the countries of Europe to be a united Europe, kind of like the United States. But when you go around the countries in Europe, they all have their own language. They did go to a common coinage some time ago, the euro. Some of you have traveled there, you get, coinage and all that. But most of the countries you go to still, they speak their language. And while traveling from one place to the next is a lot easier than it was at one time, and you got the trains and all that in Europe. But the whole idea of a united Europe is kind of like the United States. We got 50 states, and of course it starts out with the 13 states that form the Union, not the other way around. And then you get all the issues around the states that we have here. Well, the same thing in Europe right now, because some people are not happy with Hungary, some people are not happy with Poland, some have in Moldavia and Slovakia. So you got there's a lot of division even among these European nations.
But remember, the 10 toes are going to be iron and clay, and they don't mix.
You're talking about in the image of Daniel.
Right. so they don't mix. So it's not going to be a congealed, strong kind of thing to some extent, because clay is very weak, and again, the two don't really mix.
So we were talking about these. What would these be? The horns, the heads, or the crowns?
Some kind of like countries or kings or something.
And usually horns are seen as a symbol of strength or power, where crowns are talking about some kind of regal or authority on that. Now, this beast, and if we're talking about the beast being the Antichrist, the Antichrist is not a beast, it's a person. He's a man. But here John is standing on the shore. He sees this coming out of the sea. And by the way, in the Revelation 21 it says, and there's no more any more sea. Well, we live down here in the Sound. Everybody wants to live on the water. I was planning a zoning meeting the other night, and they were up here on Surf Avenue and area. They're looking to jam in 20 apartments, not condos. And they each have a view of the Sound. And then there's a whole issue about the parking and the traffic and all that. But everybody wants to live now here next to the water because there's only so much land next to the water. It's as a premium tax. If you can view the water, you pay a higher tax. If you're on the water, you can view the water. That doesn't count my inland wetland pond. That doesn't count. Okay.
They try it though.
They may try it.
You have to.
But the sea to the Israelites was sort of always something mysterious, something to be fearful of, whatever else. But he's seen, there he is on the island of Patmos, on the shore. He sees this beast coming up out of the sea. And with these features, horns and heads and crowns. He doesn't use the word Antichrist in referring to this beast. But I find that there are 5 times in 4 verses that the word Antichrist is mentioned by John. And they're all in the letters 1st and 2nd John. It's kind of interesting that in 1st, and here let me have, somebody look up 1 John 2:48. Wendy. Stephanie, 1 John 2:22. Ron, 1 John 4:3. Diane, 2 John verse 7. Anybody need me to repeat those?
223 for me.
222. 1 John 2:48. No, excuse me. 1 John 2:18. My handwriting is sloppy. Wendy, 1 John 2:18. You have that?
I do.
Yeah.
Dear children, the last hour is here. You have heard that the Antichrist is coming, and already many such Antichrists have appeared.
Antichrist is coming.
And many such Antichrists have appeared. From this we know that the end of the world has come.
All right, so it mentions Antichrist and Antichrist. Okay.
Right.
Chapter 2, verse 22.
This one's capitalized.
Chapter 2, verse 22. Who is a liar? I think that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is a liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is the Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son.
Okay. 4:3, Ron.
But anyone who denies this about Jesus does not have the Spirit from God. The Spirit that he has is from the enemy of Christ. You heard that, it will come, and now it is here in the world already.
That was 4:3.
Yes. This is the good news by him.
Okay. So, and that doesn't say Antichrist, but it says what?
Enemy of Christ.
Enemy of Christ. Diane, 2 John, verse 7. 2 John 7.
Second John,
Verse 7.
this man came for a witness to bear witness of the light, that all through he might believe.
Is this 2 John?
Oh, maybe not.
Looking for 2 John, one of the little books right before Revelation, verse 7. It's just one chapter.
One page.
So while she's turning to that, my thought is why does he refer to the Antichrist in the letters, 1st and 2nd John, but here in the book of Revelation, the Antichrist is viewed as this beast.
The Lord gave him some kind of thoughts to go with it.
He's viewed as a beast, but I think it's clearly understood that it's the person. But coming up out of the sea is not this person dressed in a nice suit, shirt and tie. He's portrayed as this beast with heads and horns and crowns. So, did you find that verse?
Yep. 7.
Verse 7.
For many deceivers have gone out into the world who do not confess Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist.
So there's the idea of the Antichrist or antichrists who are operating in the same way, deceiving people, misleading people, but not the ultimate Antichrist that we see here. And we pointed out that the difference between the beast here and the dragon, between the heads and the horns and the crowns. Also mentioned here is blasphemous names are on the heads. Blasphemous names. What is the definition of blasphemy? How would you describe blasphemy? Somebody saying something very bad or evil about God, right? And taking it, that could be possibly that. Yep. Okay, so, and we hear people today, blaspheming God, saying things that are contrary to God, contrary to God's word, blasphemy. We don't burn people at the stake or lop off heads for that anymore.
They will.
But David says they will.
In reverse.
In reverse, on the other side. Yes. Okay. We're here in New England where they had the Salem witch trials, which was, and in Connecticut. We had it in Connecticut.
Yeah, I read about it.
Witches were hung in Connecticut, Hartford. Anyway, verse 2, we have the description here of the beast, and this you see is a connection with Daniel chapter 7. And we probably should have done Daniel before we did Revelation, but we're going to go to Daniel next. So we're going to see a lot of Daniel and Revelation really go kind of like hand in glove. So what do we see here in verse 2? The beast, beside the horns and the head and the crowns, resembled a leopard, had feet like a bear, and a mouth like a lion. And so Daniel chapter 7, there's one animal missing there. I forget which one that is. Dave, do you remember in Daniel chapter 7, talking about the animals there?
Right.
Look up
That's
that up,
top of my
which
head.
one that is. So anyway, a leopard if you ever watch any of these nature shows, and it shows like these big cats. Now my cat was in the backyard today, hanging out with me, in between things. But he was in his hunting mode today, and you see him sneaking up on things, stalking things, and prancing, that. And so leopards are big cats, and they're known for how they slink around and how fast they are, and how they attack prey. So that's the leopard. The bear, it says his feet like a bear. This piece of feet like a bear. And again, the nature shows that if they ever show you the footprint of a bear, a grizzly bear, it's a big footprint. And you can say, whoa, look at that. You can see not only the foot and the claws that's sticking out. Pretty easy to figure out it's a bear print. Unless it's, what's that guy that they think's running around in the woods in Minnesota or whatever else, what's his name? Anyway, I can't think of what I'm talking about. But
The fourth one was indescribable. He didn't
describe it.
he didn't name
Didn't
an
name it.
animal.
Okay. So people, they can see a bear print and they know it's a bear. So that's what's distinguished here about the beast. It's got foot like a bear. Okay. Usually it's a big, pretty good sized imprint. And a mouth like a lion. You ever see a lion roaring and they got their mouth open? And you say, wow, look at that. Look at those fangs. Look at those teeth. So it's this interesting description of what he's seeing here from this beast. Again, distinguishing from the beast and the dragon, but we're going to be talking something here about the dragon next. Next verse. I'm reading, the dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and his great authority. So the dragon, who is the devil, is conveying to the beast, the Antichrist, what? His power, his throne, and his authority. The devil has certain authority. He got kicked out of heaven. He's called the prince of this world, right? God of this age. By the way, the Amish that don't want to run around on inflatable tires because the devil's the prince of the power of the air. They don't want to ride around on the devil. You ever hear that?
So they don't want to ride around on the devil?
Yeah, because if inflated tires and air and the prince of the air. Okay.
There's air in the tires.
Yeah, right. So
Okay. Thank you.
so now verse 3.
So that one of the heads of the beast seemed wounded beyond recovery. But that fatal wound was healed. All the world marveled at this miracle and followed the beast in awe.
So on one of the heads, and how you kill something that's got 7 heads. Every now and then you see like a freak of nature, a snake with 2 heads. But the beast has got 7 heads. And one of the heads had a wound, it says, that looked like it could have been a fatal wound. How would you know, looking at a head that had a wound that is now healed, that a scar, right? It must have been a disfiguration or a scar that indicated that there was a very serious wound here on this one of the heads. But obviously, it's now healed, and it didn't kill the beast, and it's another 6 heads. But some people speculate that the Antichrist is going to have not that he's brought back to life, but he's going to have suffered a wound that he recovers from.
Christ, it looked, when he died on the cross, it looked like he was gone,
And apparently he had the evidence of that.
Right.
Remember he showed the disciples?
Which he was in fact killed, but then he came back to life. So, but it says, like the prophecy in Genesis says that Satan will, the seed of the woman will wound your head, but you will wound his heel.
Yeah.
because Christ, so again, it's this idea of a wound that's healed.
Years ago in Milford, we had a gentleman that fought in Iwo Jima, and he suffered a grievous wound to his head and his face. And some of our soldiers, unfortunately, have had horrible, grievous wounds, loss of a leg or an arm, one thing, but disfiguration, and especially if you've seen anybody like in World War I, World War II, they were just horrible. People's jaws blown off, things like that. So this person, this wound here apparently was some kind of wound that looked like it could have been a fatal wound, but it healed up. So it just kind of then plays into how people viewed him. How people viewed him. And how do they view them? The whole world was astonished and followed the beast. Why? Because the dragon, the devil, had given him power, his throne, and his authority. So how did he get this following? Because the devil had given him these things, power, throne, and the authority. And so all these people will worship, who had worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. So we got this worship going on of the dragon and of the beast, and a whole bunch of people are all caught up into this. You see these, and everybody like today, celebrities. They got stadium fulls of people, and I've never been a huge somebody that's taken by celebrity, but there are people that they get definitely attracted to some celebrity, and just like hang on everything about that person, and it almost gets to be an idol, because almost like a thing of worship. If you're watching, how people react, it's almost like somebody worshiping this person that's on stage.
They're doing that on the news with that girl, the singer, and her football boyfriend.
Oh, you're talking about Taylor.
Yeah. And they were putting scores up. I'm probably saying this wrong because I don't understand all this stuff, but since she's hanging out with this guy, the team that he plays on is like his, going crazy. Everybody's just watching.
What team does he play on, David? That other team out there, Kansas City? He plays in Kansas City. Yeah, the amount of money she's already made, he's talking about $1 billion. I did hear she gave all her staff a real nice bonuses, which was kind of nice on her part. But anyway, the whole thing is celebrity. Here, we got these people, it says, men worship the dragon because he'd given authority to the beast, also worship the beast. He said, who is like this, the beast? Who can make war against him? So they're viewing the beast in this way, as he emerges with this power and authority that he's been given. Okay. Next, we got verse 5. Who had verse 5?
5. And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven.
So now we run into these 42 months again. And what do we say about 42 months? 3.5 years, right? Mm-hmm. So we're viewing this as probably the last half of the 7-year tribulation. The beast has emerged, the Antichrist, and was given a mouth to utter words and blasphemous, and to exercise his authority, the authority that he got from the devil. And the blasphemous things on the heads, that's coming out of his mouth, things that he's uttered as well. He uttered his mouth to blaspheme God, to slander his name, and his dwelling place, and those who live in the heaven. So when it talks about God in his dwelling place, where's God's dwelling place? Heaven. And so it also says, in those who live in heaven. People that died and are with the Lord and care right now. who are with him. So, he's blaspheming God, he's talking about heaven. Now, there's some people, Jesus, they were like swearing to affirm their truthfulness. They swear by this, or swear by this, or this is swearing at or about this, not in the same way. Okay? So do you see the activity here of the Antichrist? The beast and his blasphemies. Verse 7 and verse 8.
It was allowed to fight against God's people and to defeat them, and it was given authority over every tribe, nation, language, and race. 8 is all people living on earth will worship it, except those whose names are written before the creation of the world in the book of the living, which belongs to the Lamb that was killed.
So the Antichrist is here at war with the saints, right? He's been given power to make war. He's going to get his power from the devil to make war against the saints. Who are the saints? They're the righteous ones, the believers. And to conquer them. And he is given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. And from all those places, we have representations of people of faith, and the saints are included there. All the inhabitants of the earth, except, when it says all, but then it quickly adds, except those who are in the book of life. Otherwise, all the inhabitants of the earth, they're worshiping the beast, and all whose names have been written, all except those whose names have been written in the book of life belonging to the Lamb, who was slain, the Lamb being the one that was slain from the creation of the world. God saw it in advance, and so that's why it says it from the creation of the world. So this question is, now here we are at the end of the tribulation. The Antichrist, the beast, has come up out of the sea, and he's engaged here in these blasphemous things and at war against. Why do you think, why is he allowed to do this? I mean, he's getting his power and his authority from the devil, but why is he allowed to do this and even make war against the saints?
God gave him so much time to be able to do all that.
But why did he do it?
Kind of the mystery of your God, that you would allow Satan to be in existence after his rebellion, and the whole thing of evil. Why evil? Why the existence of evil? And there are those who say, well, if God is all powerful and God is all good, why would he allow this evil one, evil things, and even here, for the Antichrist to be doing these things, and waging war against the saints? Yes, Stephanie.
It says in here, the presence of pain, suffering, and evil in the world causes some people to wonder whether a good God exists, and if he does, why? He doesn't put an end to any of it. Because he can't, if he can. John's vision of a beast rising up out of the sea and causing great havoc in the world does not explain why there is evil, but it does sound an important note of encouragement. The evils of the world would happen only by permission.
Well, only by permission, but permission has been granted, and he's waging this war against, many people in the world are in league with him. He's also making war against the saints. Yes, please.
I don't know the exact answer for why, but Christ did say he suffered and we would too. In the world you have tribulation, but be comforted, I've overcome the world.
Yeah.
So, and he, he's God, and he certainly never had to come here, never had to suffer anything. Could have just wiped us all out, or sent us all, or let us all just go to hell, and it would have been just.
Gets down to human choice, doesn't it?
Sure,
there are these people who are worshiping the beast, but then there are others who are in the Lamb's Book of Life, because obviously they made a belief or commitment to the Lord. So doesn't it come down to human choice?
Well, there's probably another option that he's given them a chance to switch. I mean, he knows, because it says already, the book, if you're in the Book of Life, they're not involved in this.
Right.
So it's against his own people.
But if you are in the,
Devil's
but
people.
if you are in the Book of Life, you're not exempt from what's happening here.
That's right.
He's waging war against them, these tribulation saints. And we see this down through the history of the church. Grew up hearing stories about the Martyr's Book of Mirrors, and the whole Reformation, and the Anabaptists who were horribly persecuted by everybody. Burnt to the stake and drowned and all kinds of horrible things. Put on the rack, you know. And these were godly people who died in faith, great heroes of the faith. But the difference is the eternity. The eternity between the people who are in the Book of Life and the people who aren't. And that's the big difference, yes.
Well, like in the Garden of Eden, God could have left the tree of life, tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He could have left it out of the equation, and everything's hunky-dory. But one thing is, he wanted people to choose him, and he made us with choice, like you say. It's a matter of choice. Adam and Eve were not robots or marionettes that were controlled by him, but they were free-thinking and free-acting beings, and just like we are. And he wants us to choose him, and there's a price to do that. But he wants us to do that, but it's kind of up to us. But then we're going to reap what we sow.
So Diane, did you read verse 9 and 10, right?
Yep.
What does that say? He who has an ear, let him hear. Where we heard that before? Jesus said that many times. You got ears? Use them and hear. Hear now, okay. Anyone that goes into captivity he'll go. What you read there, I said, if anyone is killed by the sword, with the sword he will be killed. Read your verse there in verse 10.
He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of saints.
You remember the story in the Gospels about when they came to arrest Jesus? And Peter took out his sword and took a swipe at the servant of the high priest and took off his ear. It's because he missed. He was trying to take on his head. And then Jesus healed the individual. But Jesus said, you don't put up your sword. Those who use the sword perish with the sword. What we have today is the gun. Every now and then you hear somebody with a knife or a sword, but mostly the crime we hear about is with guns. And unfortunately, the same thing that's said about knives is also said about guns. The people that using guns, a lot of times they end up being the victims of crime with a gun as well. Yeah. And then what I want to put a little bit of time in the last part of this verse, it says, this calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of saints. And it always brings me back to what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25, and it's found in verse 12 or so. Matthew 24. But he who stands firm to the end will be saved. That's verse 13. Matthew 24, verse 13. He who stands firm to the end will be saved. Here it says, this calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of saints. So on the part of these saints whose names are, who are in the book of life, who the beast is waging war against, while they're being waged war against by the Antichrist, they're told to have patient endurance and faithfulness as they face this very real threat. And I think that's good words for all of us as we face adversity or difficulties, hardship, problems. The answer is that to have patient endurance, realizing it. Nothing lasts forever. You get through this, you get into another thing. So you got to get through this, patient endurance, enduring, and faithfulness. To remain faithful even in the face of tribulation, trouble, problems, issues like this, to remain faithful. Don't let trouble cause you to lose faith, but actually use your faith to deal with the problems. I often say, I don't know how people that don't have faith deal with some of the things that people, what do you got to deal with in life? And just patient endurance is the other thing, is just enduring. Having the patience to endure hardship and difficult times. Yes.
Just how people deal with things if they don't have faith, like with drugs, or all, you know, you can name.
They're looking for some other way out.
Right, so those are they're leaning on other things like that.
People talk about drink, liquid courage, whatever else. But here, patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of the saints. I like all the rest of this part of this chapter, pretty negative. I like that verse. That verse stick out. So now we're going to talk about the second beast, the beast that's out of the earth. First beast was out of the sea. We're in verse 14. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast on his behalf. So he's kind of acting in the first beast's behalf, right? This is the false prophet. And made, on his behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. So this sort of helps answer why are all these people worshiping the first beast. What does this verse say? They were influenced to do so by this false prophet. Jesus warned about not only false Christ, but also false prophets. And these people were following the false prophet, what he was saying, and that's one reason they were worshiping this beast that had the fatal wound would get healed. Verse 13, he performed great and miraculous signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to earth in full view of the men. So this false prophet has some amazing qualities and abilities here, and powers, which is one reason why so many people are following him and are being deceived by them. The magicians in the story about Moses and Pharaoh were able to duplicate a lot of the things that Moses did.
I have a
So,
question.
yeah.
The one that comes from the earth, isn't it the same as the one that comes from the sea?
No, two different beasts. One out of the sea, one out of the earth.
So the one that comes from the sea is the Antichrist.
Is the Antichrist, and this
guy here,
and this one is the false prophet.
but he's the one that's got all these powers.
And you can see the connection between him and the Antichrist. He's kind of like the prime minister, the false prophet, in league with the Antichrist.
Okay.
And it kind of helps explain why all these people are following the Antichrist. Because they're being influenced by this one who has this evil supernatural powers to
But I thought that,
get people, mislead people, to get people to do these things.
that the beast Antichrist was just so beautiful and so powerful, and all these people just fell at his feet, but that he didn't have someone to help him, to help them go to him.
Yeah.
I thought people just
Well, according to this, the false prophet is influencing. It's part of the reason why people are indeed worshiping and following the false Christ.
He's like the Pope of the Antichrist.
All right. It says, because of the signs, he was given power on behalf of the first beast. He was given power, and the first beast, where did he get his power from? From the dragon, from the devil. He was given power on behalf of the first beast to deceive the inhabitants of the earth. All these people that weren't in the book of life, but are now following him and worshiping and saying all these things. How do these people get to do that? They're being influenced by the false prophet here. He ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by a sword yet lived. Another reference to this wound. And this kind of reminds us the different images that we read about in the Old Testament, people worshiping an image. Nebuchadnezzar, remember even the golden calf that the Israelites were worshiping when Moses came down from the mountain? Okay. Here's this image. He was given, verse 15, he was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast. He was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so it could speak and cause all who refuse to worship his image to be killed. So you see how the first beast and the second beast, the Antichrist, the false prophet, how they're in league, working together here, and how one is aiding and abetting the false prophet with the Antichrist. He has forced everyone that's not in the book of life, one of the saints, all these other people, he's forced everyone, small and great, and it doesn't talk about somebody who's short and tall, it's talking about people who have some real significance in life in some way, maybe wealth or power or whatever else, versus people that don't. Small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive the mark on his right hand or on the forehead. Now, whenever you buy something and it's got that barcode on it there, you remember there was a time when things like that didn't exist, but now they do. And even with COVID, everybody had this, thing, you had to have proof that you had the shot. In some places, you didn't have that, you didn't have a job. And then over in Scandinavia, they're now putting like chips in people so they can gain entry in security systems. Now, would you allow that? Would you go along with that? I don't think I would go along with that. If that was a requirement of my job, I have to have somebody put a chip in my skin on my hand here. So no thanks. I think I'm moving on to another job.
You might be a little hungry coming.
So when you read this, when we read this now, we can see how something like this could be. Where people, a couple hundred years ago reading this are like, what is this? What kind of a mark would this be? How would this work?
But they are doing that still, not just where you said. It's happening right here.
It's happening now, but I'm saying a couple hundred years ago this wasn't happening. Even 100 years ago this wasn't happening. But we can see this now, and we can say, well, here's John in this vision. He's seeing something, and so the other side of that is we must be getting a lot closer to this time, or when this is going to be actually happening, because we can see how it could happen because of the technology and the things that are happening today. Okay?
Pretty scary.
Forced everyone, small and great, rich or poor, free or slave, to receive this mark on his right hand or on his forehead. I don't know, given a choice on your hand or your forehead. What do you want there, Roll? So that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark. Again, we just got through this COVID thing. And you didn't have the evidence that you had the shot. You weren't allowed to travel or work certain places or whatever else. right?
Yeah, our son
You had to have
lost,
that, you had to have proof of that, yeah.
our son lost his job.
I mean, we lost a lot of people in the military who refused to take it. Never got rehired.
I almost lost my job, and, I had, at the beginning, got a note from my doctor, and she asked me, why do you not wanna get the shot? And I said, because there's something wrong when somebody wants to pay you to do something, or something. I said, I don't want it. And so she gave me a note, but sure, and I kept my job. But, I was one of the last people that was able to have the note, because then they stopped. They fixed it so you couldn't get a note anymore, so people were losing their jobs, even though they were sick about it, or something was wrong, or religious beliefs, or whatever, they lost their jobs.
So, you know, from our experience here with COVID, you can see how something like this could work.
Yeah.
If you don't have the mark, you're not able to buy or sell. You know, it's getting to be now that, you know, people don't want to take cash anymore. And I see all these people pulling out their phones. Don't. They're buying for a cup of coffee, and they're putting the phone on there, and they're paying for it with the phone on there. Well, do they get a statement? They must get a statement that shows all this stuff. Do you think they actually look over that statement?
No, they don't. 'Cause I don't.
Whatever in cash. I'm an old school guy. I'm a cash guy. I like cash. I like to deal with cash. But there's places that don't want to take cash anymore. You don't want to use a credit card, they don't want your business. Well, guess what? There's always going to be somebody, I think, that's got to be taking cash. And we might get back to bartering or whatever else, but here it says, if you don't have this mark, you're not able to buy or sell. And we can see, like I say, there's businesses today that, restaurants and whatever else, they don't take cash. The gym I work out in, you can't buy anything there with cash. They don't take cash. And then I guess some of it is the management doesn't want to hold the thing, but dealing with their employees handling cash.
You know what I think is scary is Elon Musk has made those chips he's putting in people's heads so they can see or something better. But where are they gonna go with that in the future?
Where are they gonna go? Yep. Well, when we're reading this stuff today, it makes it's a whole lot easier for us to understand than it people 100 years ago,
Yeah.
or down through the history of the church for all this. It's kind of like the book 1984. There was stuff in 1980. Remember how long ago 1984 was? I remember in the 60s, it was like, seemed like way in the future. Now it's 47 years in history or more. Okay. Now, it says, so that no one can buy or sell unless he had the mark, which was the name of the beast or the number of his name. We're getting to this number here, okay? This calls for wisdom. If anyone has insight, another word for wisdom, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number, and his number is 666. So this passage ends with a sort of a positive statement, kind of like one where it says it calls for patient endurance and faithfulness. This one says this calls for wisdom and insight. This calls for wisdom. What true wisdom is what comes from God, and insight is just another word for wisdom. But, to know, it said the name of the beast and his number, and the number 666. Now, down through the years, the beginning people thought it was Nero. Some people think it was the Pope, and it's all different kinds of other people that they calculate with certain numbers and names of coming up with who the Antichrist is. 666 are the numbers, significance to it. And I said there wasn't that show I saw on the occult the other day where they were trying to catch some people that were into the occult and had committed a murder. And so they were quoting the book of Revelation, but 666.
I think the 3 S's stand for the Social Security system. And that's probably the number you're gonna have to get.
But you already have that one. So
On a piece of paper, but they're gonna put it on my arm so
it's hard to say, I mean, here it says, for the number of man's number is 6. But now you got 666, like the Trinity. And pretty much people realize down through the years, I mean, 666 is viewed here as with the Antichrist. But beyond that, Dave, you got any thoughts about the number 666?
Well, it's short of completion. 6 is an imperfect number, whereas 7 is God's perfect number.
But it's repeated, 6666.
Well, you've got the Satanic Trinity.
Like 2/3 of 1,000, but anyway, the Trinity, 666. Certainly is associated with the Antichrist. I think that's the easiest thing we can say. And if you have wisdom and insight, people living at the time of this, saints living at the time, have wisdom and insight. They're going to be able to recognize that this is indeed the Antichrist that was spoken of here in this chapter. Anybody have any other thoughts on the two beasts? The one coming out of the sea, the Antichrist, the one coming out of the land, the false prophet, and how you can see how in league. You remember a couple of years back, Saddam Hussein, and he had this press spokesman, and the guy was supposedly a Christian, Iraqi, but he was always the mouthpiece for Saddam Hussein. And that's what this Antichrist here and the false prophet are. The false prophet is kind of the mouthpiece for the Antichrist. The two beasts, yes.
I'm just looking here, some comments from Dr. David Jeremiah. He said regarding 666, he said you could sum up the number, the ultimate in human ingenuity and competence. The Antichrist is the epitome of man's last attempt at ruling the world before Jesus overrules all those who oppose him once and for all.
And if you have wisdom and insight, you will recognize this person and the significance of all of this. Okay? Next week, we're on the Lamb and the 144,000. Another two here. As we've been going through Revelation of different chapters. So next week, chapter 14. Yes.
You know, we look at the descriptions that John gives,
Yeah.
and sometimes I think what it is, he's seeing them spiritually. Because they're obviously going to be human beings,
Yeah.
but he can see the spiritual evil and the spiritual ugliness of them. And that's how he's describing them.
He's describing them in this way. Yeah. How else would you describe evil? In some way. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We have a lot of people to pray for tonight. Kathy just lost her father. Next Wednesday, I think it's going to be his memorial service. He would have been 91. Lisa, your mother apparently is very nearing her end. She also is 91, 92.
92 or 93?
92.
92. Okay. So I was thinking today, I mean, I don't remember a time, and I've been in the ministry 50-some years, and this is a small church, but the number of serious health issues, even approaching death, you lost your wife, you lost your husband. I think some of it is we're all getting older. And even though some get to live well beyond the 70, 80 years, sooner or later, this life is over. And it ends in different ways, but a lot of times it's some major health issue. Joe Whalen right now is dealing with a major health issue. Sandy has been dealing with a sister who's got a major health issue. And Debbie Clark, is it her sister?
Yeah, her sister, Cheryl.
So we have an enormous number of people who either themselves or their loved ones or whatever else are dealing with health issues. So we just pray for these people to have comfort, to have strength to get through all this. And we ask as well if it's God's will for healing. For God's will concerned about healing. If not, there's the ultimate healing is when we're free from this body with its issues, and we're in the presence of the Lord. That's the ultimate healing. So let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we mentioned these names, and I'm sure there are a good number of other ones that are just dealing with some very serious health issues or death and dying of loved ones. So give them strength, give them wisdom, give them courage, give them comfort, and may all of us, as we number our days, if God has given us health and strength, to be thankful for that and to use the health and strength that we have for the kingdom's sake and for the good of others.
We also pray, Father, just for those who aren't here tonight, for Kathy, and also Beatrice, and Matthew, and others too, Lord, Bill, Anthony, and others too. We just pray for each one that you'll be with them. We also pray for all of our families in our church. We just ask your hand on each one. That we would all just help each family, Lord, that we would serve you and love you, and every child, every member would know you, be saved, be born again, because without being born again, we can't be with you. We must be born again. Father, we just thank you for your love for all of us, and your many blessings and your many just the work you do in our lives. We also pray for all of our leaders. We just look to you, Lord. Thank you, you're in control, and that we can always rely on you.
So Lord, as we proceed through this week, we pray that indeed you would strengthen us to indeed have patient endurance, faithfulness, wisdom, and insight.